Season 6 continues to fly by. Count them, 2 episodes remaining on Season 6. And our intention here at the show is we are going to close out on a bang. In this episode, we're going to dovetail ever so nicely with the conversation we had last episode with Dr. Kockelman regarding autonomous vehicles. Elaina Farnsworth, the CEO from the NIST Education, is going to join us here momentarily, and we're going to discuss smart city, ITS, cybersecurity, opportunity, and a whole lot more. More on that shortly. Stick around. This is the host of The Big Bid Theory, Bill Culhane. The show is powered by Bid Prime. Last episode, you may recall I joked with Rick about his jacket, and well, much to my chagrin, the weather gods were listening. Fall has officially arrived in Austin. What does fall in Austin mean? A high of 60 today. So that means I'm breaking out the parka. I'm headed back to Miami. Rick is standing by. Rick will have your Crazy Bid segment. That's coming up in a moment as well. Hey, Rick, we call it a tease in the business. Do you want to tease us with what's ahead in Crazy Bids?
Well, I don't want to be too revealing, Bill, but this will be a good one and a real eye-opener. So I found a crazy bid, or more accurately, it's crazy bids, where we found that one state is far and away leading the pack in this particular field that we'll get to. And spoiler alert, it is directly related to this episode and our last episode.
All right, we'll be looking forward to that. Dr. Kockelman did share a wonderful overview on autonomous vehicles. We had a tremendous reception to that episode, and I know you enjoyed it, Rick. You and I were talking at our wrap-up meeting. I know one of your many hobbies is keeping an eye on the world of technologies. Smart cities moves your meter like it does for many, doesn't it?
It really does, Bill. Smart city is such a cool and interesting topic. And, you know, I'd spend a lot of time in Austin and used to spend a lot of time in the DFW area, Dallas-Fort Worth. And I see all kinds of smart technology in action everywhere now. And even closer to home here at Bid Prime, I've seen the steady and certain rise in the smart technology for smart cities in tech-related bids and RFPs like for IoT, transportation, communications, utilities, public services. Smart tech is really all over the place, and so I'm very interested to get into this conversation we'll have with Elaina.
Before our visit with Elaina Farnsworth, and we venture into smart cities, ITS, cyber, people power, and more, thanks for listening to this brief message.
The Big Bid Theory is brought to you in part by Bid Prime. Over 11 years in changing the bid services industry, Bid Prime has become the solution for businesses serious about winning public sector business. From the premier technology in the industry to real-time bid notifications, supporting documents, and robust data tools, it's all backed by unmatched personalized customer support. Bid Prime. Start your free zero-obligation trial today. bidprime.com.
Over the course of 6 seasons of doing the show, we have visited with various people from across the country, sea to shining sea scenario. I can officially announce in this episode, we have our first ever guest from up in Michigan. Elaina Farnsworth is the CEO of the NIST Education. Elaina will share more on the NIST Education in our upcoming conversation. She's recognized across the land as an acclaimed speaker, published writer, and thought leader on a variety of topics applicable to this episode. Credentials, you ask. Elaina was recognized as a 2018 Top 10 influencer for North American automotive suppliers, 2015 Tech Week 100 Top Tech Leaders in Detroit, and also 2015 Corporate Magazine's Most Valuable Professional. There are but a few of her awards. It's quite clear that one of her passions is to equip others with the skills and knowledge to advance in an ever-changing world, and we are ecstatic to have Elaina Farnsworth join our show. Here's our conversation.
Elaina, thank you for sharing your time visiting with us from up there in Michigan. I want to welcome you to the Big Bid Theory.
That sounds great. Thanks for having me, Bill.
Around the world, many, many billions are being spent, with many more billions to come, on various smart city technologies. And Elaina, as you know, Of course, a significant portion of that investment is right here in the U.S. So why do you believe smart city technologies are important as to support that kind of investment?
So, Bill, I really like this question, and I typically start by framing what smart city is. There are a lot of people out there that hear the term, and we recognize that it seems like a really important thing because we are investing so much. But smart cities are a way so we can bring new technologies and new skill sets for people together in order to have connectivity that allows more accessibility and more equity. So for instance, I often say, let's just imagine your traffic light and a car. In a normal environment, you're driving up to a traffic light. It may be 2 a.m. in the morning. You've gotten off work. You're tired, and you sit because the traffic light is red. Well, there's no one else that's coming. In a smart city environment, the technologies would work together to allow you to know that there was no one else that was coming. There was no one else around. So the infrastructure, the traffic light, would talk to your vehicle and very likely allow you to go through that light in that circumstance. In another example, it's very important to note that smart city is not just cars and infrastructure, but it's the ecosystem of the community talking to one another to create better opportunity. So for instance, if you are in an environment where someone doesn't have access to personal transportation like a car, and they are in an environment where they need health care, smart city technologies could allow ride sharing with self-driving cars, or even allow access to scooters and bicycles that had electricity and technologies behind it, so that that individual could get the health care in a way that they never could before. So when I say that as a smart city, think about it more than just, traffic light and cars, but think about a way of life where technology is interacting with people to make a better and greener environment.
Fantastic point. It does go way beyond mobility, Elaina. And I heard you there a second ago. You mentioned skill sets and you mentioned people. As you and I chatted about the other day, it is awesome to have these various wonderful technologies, not only smart city tech, but it takes people to make them go. When it comes to smart city technologies, please describe the people who are needed to support them, the kinds of skill sets that are required.
Yes. I'm going to share a story first, and I kind of laugh a little bit because it'll give you a good idea of where I'm going to go next. I travel a lot for my role as the CEO, and I flew in to Nashville just a few years ago, and I was riding on a shuttle, and the driver says, "What do you do?" And I said, "My company trains the worker of the future to build and sustain self-driving technology and intelligent infrastructure." And he said, "Oh, great, you're the person that's going to put me out of a job." So I had to laugh. I laughed because I said, "Well, no, actually, let me explain to you. It's an opportunity for you to get a different kind of job." And so it is a funny thing. I'm glad you laughed, Bill, because you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But the smart city initiatives, if you think about all of the technology that's involved, so I'm going to throw out a couple of acronyms and define them because it's important to talk about the skill sets to support them. So in the industry, we often use V2V technologies, which means a vehicle is talking to another vehicle, or V2I, which means the vehicle, as in the case that I used earlier, is talking to a traffic light or infrastructure. And then there is V2X, which means that the vehicle is talking to other things. It may be your cell phone. It may be the scooter that I talked about earlier. There's a lot of vehicle to infrastructure or vehicle to other things or vehicle technologies that are utilized in a smart city environment. When you think about those technologies operating together, the technologies are cross-functional. So you have some of the technologies that are working with communications. So that means How does the car talk to another car or other things? How does the infrastructure talk? They must use communications. So those communication can be in the form of satellite. It can be in the form of wireless. It can be in the form of DSRC. There's a myriad of communication protocols I can speak to, but I'm laying the foundation so that you can understand the skill sets that are needed for this smart city environment are huge and they're limitless. So we will need the city planners that will be allowed to plan where these devices are to make the biggest impact on the community. Things such as, where are we going to put the charging stations for electric vehicles? Where are we going to have the self-driving cars parked? It likely won't be in a garage anymore. There'll be different alternative ways where planners will need to be able to understand those concepts. We'll need infrastructure providers, are those people that will actually go in and program the technologies, not only on the infrastructure side, but also in the vehicle side, so that they can communicate and accept the communication from the other devices. Obviously, there's software engineers because there is a lot of software that's included. The last statistic that I saw said that in one vehicle, there's over 5 billion lines of code or something crazy like that, or 50 million in other instances. And so obviously there's a software component to the skill sets that are needed. And then there are those other skills that people often forget, and it's the skills trade, the trades of the people that go in and are able to construct the infrastructure, build the lights, be able to maintain the sensors. So what happens when a sensor breaks? In 5G, the sensors, there are a lot more sensors than there were in the previous versions of the communication. And so if you're a person that likes to work with your hands, there's obviously a role now for you to be able to upskill yourself in order to play this digital transformation role and be able to not only support the building of products and infrastructure, but also the maintenance of them in a longer term capacity.
There are so many examples of smart city tech in use. And right here in Austin, we see it. And just to take our audience behind the curtain, before Elaine and I came on, I talked about the massive growth in population here in the Austin area. And so we see Austin is working to improve mobility, make things cleaner and safer, more efficient public services. You've touched on a few examples of smart city tech. And as you mentioned, you travel across the country. What are a few other examples of the more interesting applications of smart city tech, which you've come across in your study or witnessed firsthand?
Sure. Now, these are the fun conversations because when you think about smart city, a lot of people will go to their mind of this wonderfully connected city, which it is, with vehicles driving themselves and the certain examples that I used before of how you can get one place to another more efficiently and more safely. But I also like to talk about those startups and the newer technologies and concepts that I've seen. I mean, you're in Austin. It's the hub of innovation. There's so many innovations coming out. I recently saw a very good one that I'm going to use. So this is the time of COVID, and the entire world has been impacted by COVID. And because it's been so challenging for many businesses, innovation has also become a part of the outcome of COVID. And so last week, I was able to see a smart city application of a self-driving company. And this company was based out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, and they created a stackable self-driving car that can operate within a smart city environment. Now, immediately, your mind probably goes to the Google cars, and it probably goes to some of the other instances like the Tesla self-driving vehicles that you've seen. But this car and this vehicle was designed in a modular fashion, where the top part of the vehicle, if you've ever seen the self-driving shuttles, they look more like a box. And the bottom part of the vehicle is interchangeable, and they support other self-driving robots. And this company was able to deliver goods and services through last mile delivery. So what happens is this larger vehicle, self-driving mode, drives to a pharmacy, picks up medication. It has a route that is already predetermined so that the individuals that are on this route know exactly what time this delivery service will be there. The vehicle drives, picks up the merchandise, and then it opens itself up, and multiple smaller vehicles that look very much like the larger one go out and then deliver the pharmaceuticals, the groceries, the assets that are necessary for the community in that last mile delivery without having to have any contact with a human person. And that is just one example of an innovative and cool smart city environment that can be helpful in everyday life when we have pandemics or when we have the need to not have contact with other individuals.
Fascinating. I'm so excited about the possibilities in smart city tech. And you mentioned, well, everybody knows we're here in Austin, and yeah, Austin, there's so much technology already around this city, and I've seen that grow over the decades. So there's a little bit about smart city technology, and I mentioned to you, Elaina, on our pre-production call here on this show, we've had Diana Burley from George Washington and I3P, Gary Brantley, who's the CIO over in Atlanta. He's been here. Chris DeLuzio from Pitt Cyber. He ended last season talking about election security, cybersecurity. I don't know if there's been a topic, Rick is nodding his head, I don't know if there's been a topic we've discussed more on this show over the years than cybersecurity. We also had Brian Palish and Greg DiLoretto from ASCE on talking about infrastructure and intelligent transportation. So that is a very long drum roll to ask you to please discuss some of the opportunities for people who are possibly interested in working in the totally connected worlds, I guess, of cyber or ITS.
No pressure, Bill.
Yeah, right. You've got 3 minutes to go.
Pressure.
You've got 3 minutes to go.
The reason that this really is such an important topic is because historically, I'm sure many of your other guests have pointed out that historically, cybersecurity was thought of as a bolt-on solution. So, maybe we need to think about cybersecurity way back in the, as you know, some of my friends say, the 90s. They taught about security as a standalone, but as we have evolved as an industry and realized that there is no bolt-on solution, that cybersecurity is inherent in every one of these technologies that we're creating, not only in the technologies, but also in the process and the training of the people that are utilizing these technologies, because there are many instances, which I'm sure your other guests have mentioned, that many times it is a technology issue, but sometimes it's a user issue. So it's really important for us to take a look at cyber from a strategic perspective in the instance that I used earlier. So when we're doing city planning for smart city installations, we must take into consideration the cybersecurity that has to be built in the system itself. So how is the cyber built in, the infrastructure, and as it communicates to the vehicles, how is that cyber handled, and how are the handoffs and the encryption handled? Something that a lot of people don't think a lot about. And we have a wonderful facility here, the American Center for Mobility. They're doing a lot of research on securing and cybersecurity for the electric vehicle charging stations. So what's going to happen when we have multiple vehicles that are charging on charging stations? What are the cybersecurity thoughts that need to be put in place up front for those? And then when we do talk about cyber, there are basic things that we can do to protect ourselves. And there are also very advanced things when you get to responding to incidents. So from the very basic level, cyber is important because that is going to be the foundation of the security of everything that interacts within Smart City. And as you move up to making sure that you are secure, we get into those very complex pieces, which are how do you respond to a bad actor when you understand that you have been compromised. And I hate to say it, but there will be compromises. There are compromises every day. But having a process in place to make sure that the risk is minimal, to make sure that we're protected if the breach does occur, and to make sure that we understand how important every element of the smart city is, from the charging station to the software to the communication to the smartphones that will be talking to the vehicles that pick them up. All of those have to have a strategy of protection, and the underlying cyber format is critical to make sure that we do it properly.
Great points. And when I think of cybersecurity, I go back to the conversation I had with Gary Brantley, I guess it was a couple of years ago. And everybody, of course, is aware that Atlanta was impacted by a ransomware attack. And I do need to point out that was prior to Mr. Brantley joining the staff there in Atlanta. But Gary talked about the importance of planning. And we understand, and Gary pointed out, that the cybersecurity attacks are inevitable, but to have a plan in place, it is so important. And you bring up some great points about the importance of people and brain power all being involved in the equation. So I know many in our audience appreciate that, Elaina. I know I do. We do want to hear more about the Next Education. What can you tell our audience about the Next Education and what you and your team provide?
I guess you can probably tell from my passion about this subject. What we really stand for at the Next Education is making sure that the best technologies are married with the best people. So when we were talking before the show, I mentioned to you, you can have the best technology in the world, but if you don't have the people that can operate it, that can build it, that can maintain it, it does no good. And so what we at the Next Education do, we train, reskill, and certify people and companies that are interested in getting into intelligent transportation or that are already working in intelligent transportation. Let me give you an example. So many of our clients are government organizations, cities, states, transportation entities, and we also service OEMs and for-profit clients. But a lot of times, if you think about how fast this technology happened, it was a very long time before we had degrees in intelligent transportation and self-driving, and they're still very limited. So if I got into the transportation field 10, 15 years ago, for instance, it's very unlikely that I have a doctorate in intelligent transportation. It didn't really exist. And so the Next Education, we take very new and innovative concepts, specifically around new mobility, intelligent transportation, ITS, and all of the elements around that. So the technician training, the cyber training, and we have a product line called MicroTracks, where our students get a foundational knowledge online, so they can do it at self-paced in their homes, at their offices, and then we marry that with the very important instructor-led piece, where before COVID, they would meet in a seminar-based program, but post-COVID, we are doing online live. So we have our students that get to that fundamental knowledge, meet together to discuss and problem solve, and then after those courses, they are, depending on the program, given certifications and credentialed by very well-known bodies like the Connected Vehicle Trade Association, the Intelligent Transportation Engineer Society. So those are the types of programs that we support, and it's all about training people to be ready for the new world of transportation.
Very good, very important. And I will point out the Next Education Kevin will include a link to the NIST education in the description of the podcast of this episode. And that's a good transition, a good segue. Elaina, as I mentioned to you earlier, I always like to close out our visits with our guests by asking if there are any specific resources tied into our conversation that you believe would be useful to our audience, or do you have any upcoming events you'd like to share with the TBBT audience?
Oh, yes, I'd love to. We have a lot of white papers that we regularly produce to your audience that may be interested in getting into the field of intelligent transportation. Because frankly, Bill, there's so many jobs out there and they're called so many different things that if you're new to the industry, it could be daunting to try to figure out where your place would be. So we'd be happy to share some of those white papers for you. I often do regular speaking engagements. I have one that's coming up. I'll be on a panel that is discussing teleoperations from NIST, and there's information about that panel. It is in November on their NIST.org, which, Bill, if you could post that, that would be fabulous. And again, that's another level of teleoperations, which many people have probably not heard of before. And it's an extension of some of the wonderful technologies and potential employment opportunities in the world that will be coming in the future. So I'd be happy for your audience to join me there. And there's about 20 other experts around the world that will be discussing what's going to happen in the future with teleoperations.
Sounds very interesting. And yes, Kevin will make note of that information in the description of the episode, including the information on NIST as well. Well, Elaina, on behalf of our audience and, of course, our team here at the show as well, we thank you so much for visiting with us and sharing your expertise.
Oh, it's been my pleasure, Bill. Thank you very much for having me.
Again, my visit with Elaina Farnsworth from the NIST education. And with no further ado, we're going to get right to it. Rick Jennings is standing by with this episode's Crazy Bids You Can Win. Rick, take it away.
Thanks, Bill. So we wanted to do something a little bit different here on this Crazy Bid section for this episode. So it's not exactly like Crazy Bid in the sense that it's like just a crazy bid, but so check this out. So on our topic, I searched in BidPrime's database for just electric vehicles. So we're looking for like anything having to do with electric vehicle type bids, and get this. 82.3% of the most recent bids originated just from California. 82.3% in looking at the nation as a whole. All of those come from the one state over the past year, which is crazy to me. Like California, definitely it has the most. It's not even close. It makes me kind of wonder like what's going on with the rest of the states. Although we know like California is a pretty progressive state and such, and really likes to harbor new tech and things like that. So not totally surprising, but that was just pretty crazy to me in the research. Like just to name a couple of examples, like here's one for Los Angeles County. Bid title is Electric Vehicle Supply Equipment. They're looking to install these over at Newport Beach. The Riverside County Department of Corrections, they're looking for electric vehicles, supply and equipment, and installation. Tons of different agencies in California, and of course the rest of the nation, but namely in California, again, 82.3% from all these electric vehicle bids from all over the nation are all in California. So there you have it. Public sector requests for electric vehicles. California is definitely the winner right now. And so those, hopefully, if you are in that field, those are this episode's crazy bids that you can win.
Thank you very much, Rick. Appreciate that. And that's going to wrap up this episode of the Big Bid Theory. We thank you so much for sharing, downloading, and following our show, TBBT. Continue to mail us. If you have a suggestion, by the way, for a topic for the final episode of Season 6, we'd love to have your input. You can email me at bcallhane@bidprime.com. You can also please give us a follow over on the Twitterverse at the Big Bid Theory. My Twitter handle direct to me is contract_hunter. And yes, we are also on Facebook as well. Powered by Bid Prime for our producer, Rick Jennings, and our digital marketing guru, Kevin Henderson. Many, many thanks again to Elaina Farnsworth, the CEO from The Next Education. So exciting to talk about things like smart city technology, ITS. We always like to talk about cybersecurity. Really appreciated that conversation. Hope it was valuable to you as well. Stay warm out there, everybody. Winter is a-coming. This is Bill Culhane. Until next time, go Gunners, Barracudas, Tigers, Bobcats, and Cubs. And we wish you all the best in growing your business.
Powered by Bid Prime, we thank you for tuning in to The Big Bid Theory. From Austin, Texas, the show is produced by Bill Culhane and Jim Ward. Producer and engineer is Rick Jennings. Distribution, research, and production assistance by Kevin Henderson. You can find other episodes of the show on platforms such as iHeart, iTunes, Spreaker, Google Play, Stitcher, among others. As always, thank you for downloading and sharing the podcast.
We're having so much fun.